Welcome back to another episode of Rennch. On today's show, frankly, I'm running out of things to do to put my EZ30R into this vintage Porsche 911. I've got some incredible welding porn to show you, and then a bunch of other bits and bobs to finish this thing. And if all the stars align, maybe I'll pull this thing out and take it for a rip around the neighborhood before this episode ends. Stay tuned. So where I'm at with this thing is currently mostly aesthetic. After last night's escapades, which I'll tell you about momentarily, I pretty much just have a number of things I want to do to make this thing look better. I want to finish polishing up the radiator. As I mentioned in the last episode, the sides are really well polished. The whole top part in front is not. So I did a little test spot and it looks like it will polish up really, really well. Of course, using the Mother's aluminum polish, not a sponsor, but this stuff is unbelievable. If you're trying to polish aluminum, get this stuff. So I've got that to do. I've got to pull the cradle and I'm gonna probably end up sandblasting some of the stuff, figure out how I'm gonna scuff up the main part of it, and then we'll Cerakote it because that's going to be the final of that. But before I do that, I have to fabricate a piece that connects to the cradle that allows me to put the muffler straps on and secure the muffler to the cradle itself. This is something that Porsche did for years and years and years. This is going to be a part I will have laser cut, but I need to get some CAD, cardboard aided design idea of how it's gonna roll. So we're probably gonna start with that from a fabrication standpoint, but before I do anything, guess what I did last night? Last night, I went over to Wildomar, which is not too far from Temecula. It's about an hour and a half away from Long Beach, and I went to visit our good friend, AJ. First and foremost, let me show you AJ's engine, which is exactly the same as this, but with a turbo on it. So we are once again at AJ's place. This is the same engine I'm putting in mine. He is an incredible welder and fabricator and made this insane setup. So he's also running two small CSF coolers, which is effectively equivalent of what I'm doing. I can't remember, you've got a turbo on here, AJ. What's this thing putting out? Unbuilt.
Unbuilt, it made 522 at the wheel.
So you're running it now, you haven't gone into this motor, right?
Nope, the only thing I've done is put spark plugs in it.
Wow, so that's insane. So it dynoed at 522, and what do you normally run it at?
I normally run it at 400. On 10 pounds of boost, it makes 400.
E85?
E85.
Yeah. So that's basically what I'm shooting for with my turbo version, but pretty rad. He also has two more cast versions of this intake. If anybody has one of these motors and wants to buy them, they are sitting on a shelf. This one is 3D printed in Canal, is that right?
Aluminum.
It's aluminum.
Correct.
But still 3D printed, and that's totally rad. All right, we're gonna weld these things up. Incredible fabrication and engineering on that, and that 3D printed intake is crazy. In fact, he's got two more on the shelf if anyone is interested in one for this particular engine. If you saw the last episode, you saw that I kind of pieced together the cooling lines to go from the engine to the radiator, from the radiator back to the thermostat. For the last couple of years, I've been using AN lines, dash 16 lines for my coolant lines. The reality is they're kind of difficult to manage. They don't have really good tight curves and they're very expensive. And if I had to like mass manufacture this stuff, which I do, they're kind of a pain. They take a long time, they poke you, it's like a whole thing. So I thought, you know, the Boxster and the factory Porsches, well, they use 1-inch tubing for most of their coolant lines. So why don't I do the same? So I got some stainless steel tubing. You guys saw me cut it and kind of put it together in the last episode. And look how AJ welded this together. Actually, before that, let me make one quick plea. I've been at this YouTube channel for literally like 9 or 10 years. It kind of pumped a little bit during COVID. I went from 1,500 to 25,000. I think I'm right around 33,000 right now, but have not been blessed by YouTube algorithm love. So if you like my content, the thing you can do for me right this very second is you can give this video a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's a huge deal for me and the channel, but more importantly, if you could give me some sort of high five in the comments. It can literally be an emoji. You could say high five, or what I really love is when you tell me what country you are hailing from, because I love to find out, like, people are watching this video from Indonesia or whatever, you know? And if you're from Indonesia, high five to you. Anyway, if you could do that, that would be rad. All right, check out this pure, unadulterated welding PORN. So these things are all taped, and we're just pulling off like a strip of the tape so that we can tack everything together before we can remove all the tape and finish weld it. So once again, always an acetone bath before it's welded fully up. Each intersection has 4 tacks in it, so we feel pretty confident that it's going to hold the way it is. To me, this is the hard part, which is making it look pretty after it's been tacked. One thing that's a little different about welding stainless steel is it gets back purged. So you can see that we are all tacked together here, and then sealed one side, and then this has a hose, and we actually run the argon gas right through it, and that helps prevent the oxygen, and then it helps prevent kind of the graining that happens on the other side. What do they call that? Sugaring? Yeah, sugaring, which means you get these weird, like, dry kind of welds, and it's not what you want, obviously. You want that lovely stacked dimes look on something like this.
Oh, yeah.
So you said if you lick your knuckle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could feel when you got a good purge, the argon comes out and it'll be pretty frozen.
Insert "that's what she said" jokes.
Oh gosh.
All right, so this is what will be the thermostat pipe that heads down from the back of the radiator with the cooler water. And we are on the very final steps now of welding the other inlet port, which is curved and was quite challenging to cope correctly with the limited tools that we have. Then there's one more special treat, and this thing will be done. And a couple hours later, we have what can only be described as artwork. It looks amazing. And then, bam! Yeah, that happened. So how you feeling about this, AJ? What'd you think?
I think it's ready.
Yeah, nailed it.
Yep.
Nailed it, boy. This is gonna look pretty good, all blinged out in the engine compartment, dude. We need to get a whatever your solo company is. We need to get a patch panel on there.
Your welding is definitely improved.
Yeah, my welding is. I'm gonna just take all the credit for this, guys. You know, I've been really working on my stainless. What do you think? Anyway, thank you, dude. You are a legend. Legendary man. Now that you've seen the process, look at the absolute artist that AJ is. What are you talking about right now? Look how incredible. Eek. And then, of course, bam! Let's just wrap it with a little Rennch logo. I'll clean that up, don't worry. But look how cool this thing looks in the engine compartment. So I also did this, which you guys didn't see me do. I decided to actually do a hard line for the underside as well. And this really solves a ton of routing problems for me. There's no way I could get an AN line to bend with this tight a radius. So now I can just pop this thing in right there. I don't have to change anything or weld anything onto the factory thermostat housing. All I need to do is I'll probably extend this, put like another maybe like half-inch piece here, beat it if I can, and then get a little adapter that goes from like 1.5 inches to 1.25 inches and make some kind of bracket or clamp that will hold it right here. And then I've got a beautifully set up set of lines, and I'm really, really excited about that. So AJ does this for a living. You know, he's got his company. They do typically like outdoor, big industrial things. But if you have like a set of headers or exhaust or something you want him to weld up, you can follow a very similar process by taping it up and then send it over. He loves doing that kind of thing. Of course, he's not free, he's very good. But here's his Instagram, so hit him up. And if you've got any work for him, I'm sure he would be psyched to talk to you about it. All right, step one is to figure out this exhaust hanger situation. And I've just poked around my shop for a little while. Ended up finding this, which is an idea from a previous iteration of the engine cradle. And it does have kind of like this top section and a 90-degree bend, both of which I could use. It's a little too wide for me to use right now, so I'm actually going to cut each end off, and I'm going to play with it a little bit and see if this is even usable for me. If it is, this could end up being like one of the easiest things I have to do, because, you know, I may have to kind of weld these holes up and re-drill them, but otherwise I can just literally cut out pieces that I don't need from this, and it should bolt in and be done. We are good to go. You might have seen that I just used the previous cradle to kind of act as a guide. I also realized something that explains a lot, which is I welded that cradle that's on the car, I welded this whole front part backwards, which explains why I was so far off, because you see this thing clears everything. I had done all the calculations, so I was wondering, why do I have to shave this thing down? Why is it so weird? Well, it's because I mounted this thing 180 degrees reversed, and thus the whole thing got shorter, and it was a whole kerfuffle. So anyway, this piece is on. This is going to be a really easy piece to have laser cut. So I'm going to fit it to the car right now. And if all goes well, I should be able to strap the exhaust on, and then I can pull everything off and start finishing it. Well, that piece worked out great. It's now time for me to pull the engine once again and kind of disassemble the things that need to be disassembled, replace the things that need to be replaced. For instance, my new bracket came in from Send Cut Send. I need to replace that. I want to polish the radiator. I need to finish polishing my air intake. I need to Cerakote the cradle. I need to do a little tracing of that piece I just did so I can bring it up in CAD and get an actual laser cut version of it. It's now like, let's pull it out for what I hope is the final time. Make sure everything's buttoned up and bolted in and strapped and engaged and all the things, and then get it back in the car, get everything plugged in, try to turn it over. This engine's actually never been turned over, at least by me. This is not the same engine that was in the Blasphemy build or the one that I started in December. This is a totally new engine. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that everything is cool with this particular motor. So we're going to fire it up and see how it goes. And then at the very least, begin the troubleshooting process from that point. because I think I'm really, really close to getting this thing on the road and driving and capable, etc., etc. So now I just got to put in some hard work and some elbow grease and make it look pretty. All right, if you guys need to polish some aluminum, this is the move that is kind of tried and true. In this case, all I'm going to do is try to polish this top part and this front side. These are already pretty well polished. I just didn't like how this thing looked, but it requires two things. Number one, you want WD-40 and you want a 3M maroon scrubby. Basically all you do is you can give the WD-40 a direct spray on the piece if you want, which I will, and then with pretty light strokes you want to just like wipe the piece until you start seeing black marks. You can go in various directions when you start, but then when you finish, make sure you end up in the same way. That's going to basically make, like, a lot of people could end there, like that would just give you a really nice brushed finish. I'll show you guys in a moment. So now I will show you the savageness of Mother's aluminum polish. There is no substitute. This is the best stuff. Go to Amazon. It's Mother's Mag and Aluminum Polish, and it's remarkable. I will show you in one little spot right there. Give that a nice little scrub. I'm not pressing like super hard. In fact, as I finish, I press lighter and lighter because I'm trying to get any scratches out. So now that's there. Let me wipe the main stuff. Then you want to take a super soft microfiber. You can't use like something like this. You've got to use one that's like really, really ultimately soft. And I will get in here like this. And this is one of those things where the more you put into this last part, the better it gets. Like you can really buff this thing into a massive shine. So because I'm really interested in removing like all the scratches from this and making it look really good, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which is kind of work my way up in polishing. So I've got 500, I've got 800, I've got 1200, and I've got 1500. So all I'm going to do is just do a quick little, you know, Windex on here. That'll be kind of wet sanding, and lightly hit all of those on here before I do the mothers, and then hopefully we'll have a really nice shiny piece. Now I've got an air intake to polish. I'm gonna do this mostly by hand because well, first of all, this stuff is better condition than my Radiator was, so I don't have as much work to do on it, but having a little hard time with my polisher, so I'm going old school with this one. Okay, I am drenched in sweat right now, and I could definitely keep going more on this, but I'm not going to. I think it looks really good. This part's kind of all tucked behind, so I was just really focusing on this, and it's going to look really good. I think I'm actually going to hit this one more time right there, just because I see it. It's going to bother me in the future if I don't polish it a little bit. Nice and clean and etched. We'll get them wiped down with acetone and get ready to Cerakote. All right, prep is pretty much done now. So I put the cradle into the oven. Hey, look at this nice framing. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, I put the cradle into the oven for an hour at about 300, 320 degrees. That kind of outgasses and gets some of the impurities in the metal to come to the surface. Then I've just wiped the entire thing down with acetone again. It was actually very clean, so I feel pretty good about it. It is hanging now, so what I'm going to do is mix the Cerakote, which I'm thinking will take probably 2 coats to get this thing dialed the way I need to. Then it dries for a few minutes, then we stick it in the oven for an hour, once again at about 300 degrees. And we should have lovely, beautifully coated parts. Okay, that was hard. Where are you? Okay, the Cerakoting process went very well, and then the getting it into the oven part was very difficult, and I poked a million holes in the bottom of my oven, so we're gonna have to figure that all out. I just wasn't prepared for how much weight I'd have to like be holding out like this, and you can't really grip anything because the Cerakote is still kind of wet. Like it'll peel off and rub off. Like it'll flash, but it's not firm at all. Like it'll definitely wipe right off if you hit it. So I'm gonna have to come up with a better plan on that. Maybe make some kind of hook system that like I can just hang the cradles on that will enable me to hang them a little better in the oven. But neither here nor there. It's in 250 for 2 hours or 300 degrees for 1 hour. So I'm actually gonna opt for the 250 for 2 hours this time. And I'm at 169 right now, so I'll crank it up until I'm right about 250 and then go have some lunch and come back. All right, there we go. And if you guys missed this, this is my homemade Cerakote oven. All I'm doing is using this Harbor Freight heat gun that is going into this large crate that's basically lined with aluminum, you know, interior insulation with everything taped. And as you can see, it works great. It gets right up to 250. It will absolutely, you know, go above 300. And it works great for a big old oven like this. All right, here we are, post-baking, a couple hours later. The heat is emanating. It is still about 180 degrees in here. So I'm gonna let this cool down naturally with the door open, but hard to tell from the camera, but this is like this lovely smooth finish on here now. You can see though I totally trashed my oven trying to get it in, and we'll do better next time. In the meantime, I've done a quick recoat of my exhaust. It was kind of scratched up, and my kind of temporary piece here, I've actually ordered the correct piece from Send Cut Send, so it's being processed as we speak. And I'm just gonna kind of put this stuff on for the photo shoot and this kind of initial install, and then when it all comes in, I'll swap that spot out. Well, here we are. I'm just realizing that right now, after I grab this cradle from, you know, the Cerakote oven, this is going to be the first time that I can assemble the engine in its fully completed form after, I don't know what it's been, 2.5 years of work. And it's been a very eventful 2.5 years. Let's see, I've been in the hospital 3 times. I've had a surgery. I've had a squatter. I've had a lot of like very rough things happen in this span of time, but I've also had some great things. I fell in love. I've learned a tremendous amount thanks to companies like Send Cut Send and Creality, who sent me the 3D scanner and the 3D printer. So much about how to learn to create manufacturable parts. And that has been a thrill, truly. It's been an absolute thrill. I honestly cannot wait to get back to the Blasphemy build with all of this knowledge that I have now. And I have all kinds of cool ideas of things to do on that car, especially because Send Cut Send does CNC machining now, and I know I have a couple of parts that need to be CNC'd. So it's just really cool, and it's really been a journey, like a massive journey, which reminds me of kind of a non sequitur here, which reminds me of a bit of a sidebar here. You see that today I'm wearing my serial killer coveralls. I've had this idea over the last couple of years. The idea behind like what to wear in the garage that's functional, but also you can work all day in it and get greasy and sweaty and bloody and all the things we get in the garage, and then just unzip it and you're clean. Sometimes you gotta like hurry up because the wife or the girlfriend or you got something to do and you don't have time to like scrub your whole body. So I really look back into history and think about the coveralls that the old school mechanics used to wear, and they wear them in the military still because that is an efficient way to do it. If you guys have ever noticed, I have a number of these different coveralls that I wear on a somewhat regular basis, and the most interesting ones are these, which are actually Old Navy jeans, but if you look at them closer, can you see this pattern? This is a very vintagey pattern, but you say, well, they're white. Yes, they sure are. I was just talking about the journey of the last 2.5 years, and you think, why would you want something in white? It's only going to get stained and dirty. And that's true, which is why I've been thinking about making coveralls and calling them the Journey coveralls. And they would only be available in white. White, you say, why would we do that? Well, here's the stain from when we changed the oil and found a bunch of metal in it. Here's a little gray spot where we primed the car. Here's some red from when we detailed this part of the engine. Every time we do something on a car and it stains, a little blood here, a little grease here, a little paint here, it adds to the texture and the canvas that would be the Journey coveralls. And I love that idea of starting with this brand new, clean set of coveralls, and then by the time you're done with your restoration, you have all of these stories that are all built into the clothes. So this is just kind of a pipe dream, but if anybody is interested in something like that, I don't know how much, MOQ and what my minimum quantity would be. I can definitely get them designed the way I want them and be kind of cool. I have no idea how much they would cost. It's not like I do this for a living, but I imagine it'd be probably between like 150 and 200 bucks. If anybody's interested in that, I don't know what my minimum order would be, but if I get enough people interested, maybe I'll design it and we can do the Rennch Journey coveralls. Anyway, back to what we're doing here. What I'm going to do is the engine is still currently bolted in, connected to the transmission. What I need to do is sort of get the bottom of all of this stuff sorted out, meaning let's bolt the cradle back on. Let's get the pipe that goes down from the radiator to the thermostat. Let's get that on and secured. And then I'm gonna actually lower the whole thing back onto the table here and pull it out so that I can do all the top stuff, get my new radiator bracket on, get the radiator on, make sure everything is like triple tightened and everything's the way it's supposed to be. All the plugs are plugged. All my wiring is loomed or whatever I need to do on the top end. And then I need to have the photo shoot. I need to actually take pictures of this for the website and that kind of thing. And then we finally get it in the car and turn the key and make it go choo-choo. Just no. No. All right, some really good progress. Look how sick the cooling lines look. All right, guys, cranking away here. I've gotten a lot of stuff secured. My pipes are secured. I just bolted this bad boy on, which is the exhaust hanger. I've got clamps everywhere. Everything is fully clamped and buckled up. Right now I'm going to run the wiring to this little relay panel that I built and make sure that the fans turn on with the trigger the way they're supposed to. And after that, we're running out of things to do, to be honest. I'm not sure how well you can see this. I'm completely hot wired from my fan to the relay. And then this will act as the trigger, this ground. So this actually goes to the trigger wire on the ECU, and then everything else gets wired appropriately. All right, dudes, so fans are wired. I've got all my wiring ready to go in the car. This goes to 12 volt. Back there goes to the starter. Then I've got this right here, which goes to the fuel. This is the feed line. This is the return line. Ready to go. The only thing I got to do is bolt this muffler on. Then I'm going to give the whole thing a wipe down and take a few photos for websites and things like that. And then we'll bolt it right in the car, baby. All right, guys, this is it. First time ever, completely finished, bolted together, wiped down, ready to install. So if you order the kit, this is what you get, minus the muffler, because I don't know what muffler you want. And you get an ECU that's ready to just plug in, and you get a little footboard with a drive-by wire set up, and you are ready to rock. But this thing looks completely and utterly rad. Well, this is quite exciting because now it's time to actually install this thing in the car, which is amazing. Hi, I'm back. There's a little window on the transmission where you got to see the clutch fork. So you can kind of put a flashlight in there as you're easing it in and make sure that the two little, I don't know, outriggers, splines engage with the bearing, the throw-out bearing, and then you're good to go. Yeah, that couldn't have been easier. It took me 5 minutes. I'm going to tighten the bolts now in the transmission. I'm actually going to leave the engine in this lower position while I connect like fuel lines and things like that, just so I can get to everything. All right, it's been about an hour, hour and a half, and I've completely connected everything I can. I still have a couple things to do. I've got to still run my coolant line here. I have oil, but no coolant in the car. I'm anticipating, you know, any number of like air leaks or oil leaks or fuel leaks because everything is completely new with all new connections. Just bolted my little outriggers on, one under there, one under there. It's actually sitting really well. I can tell I didn't weld my headers completely square. My exhaust is a little wonky, but I will fix that in the future. Okay, we are all connected. And so I think the only thing left is to try to give it a go. Let's turn it over and see if it works. So the question is, what did I forget? There's definitely a few plugs down there. Maybe I forgot to plug one in. That's fair. Just remembered, since I've changed engines, the drive-by wire setup on this one would be different than the one that's sitting down there. So I'm gonna have to recalibrate the ECU for this new drive-by wire. Got the screen here ready to roll. I realized that I can't calibrate the drive-by wire by myself, so I've invited my neighbor over to manually push the buttons on the screen while I actually do the pedal. Okay, pedal is calibrated, but still not starting. So I could be overthinking this. This very much could be Occam's razor. So, could be this. That was like a week of troubleshooting. Turns out I could have just looked at the video from January. So, fuel regulator. Apparently you can't just use any port for any port. There's 2 ins and 1 out. What I was doing is going in and out, and I plugged what would appear to be the outlet port, just because it made a nice, clean, even sweep. So I didn't figure that out until I tore like everything apart, and I'm looking at all of my different sensors and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But eventually I just fired it up. And the other thing was my map was wrong. For whatever reason, whatever was in my Haltech at the moment was incorrect. So I reloaded a different map after I figured out the fuel thing and fired right up. So now I got to reassemble everything, and we're going to get back to where we were, in your case, minutes ago, in my case, 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to fix a couple things and then give it a nice long-term run again, and I'll be back momentarily. Very nice to see wheels down after many months, even on these very wrong wheels. But I thought I'd give this thing maybe a drive around the block to wrap up this video. I have one more ChatGPT base map update I would like to do. Maybe we can pull this thing out of the garage and take it for a quick little lap and see how it goes. Okay, inaugural trip around the block is done. So a couple things. Number one, it definitely needs a lot of tuning. It is like good between like, I don't know, 1,500 and 2,500, 3,000 RPMs. But dude, as soon as you get beyond whatever that is, whatever tuning thing I need to do, holy crap, it is wicked fast. Like, jumpy, crazy fast. And I will tell you something, as a guy who's had a Porsche 3.6 engine in this car for, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, when I get on it and give it a rip, it doesn't sound any different to me behind me. So that's pretty darn interesting. Like, I don't know what that is. I'm not sure if it's transmission, but man, if this thing sounds as good as I think it does, we've got a huge winner on our hands. Anyway, that's going to wrap it for this video. I'm going to get to tuning this thing, and hopefully by the next episode, we will be able to maybe do a little ChatGPT tune, which is what I'm hoping to be able to do. Let this thing kind of guide me through getting a really solid base map on this, or I'll just take it to the dyno and have someone who knows what they're doing. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. As always, please, for the love of God, give this thing a thumbs up, throw me a high five in the comments, and subscribe if you're not already. This is getting really juicy. And remember, as soon as we're done with this thing, we're back to the Blasphemy build with active aero and active suspension and 3D printed everything and craziness. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.